Welcome to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, where owners of privately held middle market companies talk about founding, scaling, and exiting their businesses successfully. Learn how to maximize and monetize your business on your own terms. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Susan Carney, host of the Growth Plus Exit podcast, where we talk to middle market owners and CEOs about their businesses, how they found them, how they scale them, and sometimes how they sell them. The episode's brought to you by Newport LLC, which is a team of seasoned business owners and executives. We work with CEOs of privately held companies to help their companies be more valuable and sometimes exit them on their own terms. You can learn about us at newportllc.com. Today, I'm talking with Eric Brown. Eric's an innovator and a serial entrepreneur and the founder and CEO at GO2 Delivery. So welcome, Eric. So pleased to have you with us today.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And you always got that background that makes me feel like I want to go to the beach. So Eric, tell me a little bit about how you came to be an entrepreneur. Where did your first business idea come from?
So my first business idea, I guess I go back to the foundation of it. So my father was a serial entrepreneur himself. He was an eye doctor, had an optical practice, and then had a series of startups. And then going to the plans to go to college. My father went bankrupt during high school, so went to school full time, worked full time, and then was building a business at night, a multi-level marketing business. And then things just weren't working out with that. And so I quit college to really focus on the multi-level marketing business, which didn't pan out. But during that time frame, I had a job as a courier at a law firm when I quit college. I did that for 2.5 years. And so like this, I guess, idea came about. I didn't want to be a courier with the law firm for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
and so what am I going to do? I just quit college. I defaulted my student loans. So I researched like the courier business, being a courier at a law firm for about 6 months, and talked to a lot of people. And so one day I went to my employer and said, I'm going to start my own courier business. And they were supportive. And right away, I quit the law firm and didn't have a job. There's some other things behind that, but I got a job at night to cover my expenses, and then I just kind of beat the pavement. That's kind of how I got started. I was really fortunate. Within the first few months, I picked up a really large law firm, did all their deliveries, and that kind of set the stage for me to have a foundation to work off of. That's how I got started.
Yeah. And so the law firm you worked for didn't immediately hire you to do all their deliveries, huh?
No, because they had a plan for that. They outsourced my job to a facilities management company, so they were covered. So
yeah, sounds like that worked out for everybody, right?
Yeah, it did.
So when you started that first courier company, what was your vision there? What were you hoping would happen?
There was a courier company. There were this is back when pagers were a thing. Cell phones weren't really out. You had the push talk two-way radios to talk to your couriers. And there were a lot of couriers out there, but there's one courier company at the time that was like the dominant player in this was in Hampton Roads, like in the Norfolk, Virginia area. And they weren't super professional. But they're the largest, and they didn't have a lot of technology. So I had this vision, like one day I'll be as big or bigger than them. And so I started with my focus just serving lawyers. And that's how I got started. And so we just went after all these law firms, and over time we just grew really fast. After I closed the first law firm, I hired a part-time courier that wanted ODU, Old Dominion. And then I ended up hiring all of his frat brothers. So all my couriers were these frat brothers from this fraternity. That's how I got started. But things just started to kind of grow from there. And I had the opportunity to buy a courier company about 4 years later, which I bought a courier company that specialized in medical. So I was able to kind of expand from there. So.
Mm-hmm. So were those fraternity boys delivering things to medical, or by that time, had you found a way to find couriers?
Just law. It was mostly documents back then, just lawyers, accountants, things like that.
Yeah. And so is that courier company what is today GO2 Delivery, or were there some zigs and zags between then and now?
We rebranded 2 years ago, but same company, lots of zigs and zags. Like I said, we start with legal, and then 4 years later, we diversified into buying another company which specializes in medical. So we began to diversify in different things. And then I guess by 2003, we started to see this trend that documents for delivery were on the decline. And so we started storing spare parts for like servers and phone systems and ATMs. So that kind of vertical of our courier company grew over the next 5 years. So the business grew fast over the years within those verticals. And then the recession hits. This is kind of a segue, but the recession hits, and that vertical with parts became a really large warehousing business of our component of our business. And during the recession, these companies were all publicly held, so there's a lot of pressure to reduce pricing, and so we weren't really making any money with that. So we pivoted that division of our courier company, which is like a warehousing division, and took it to product fulfillment for consumers, like for e-commerce, pick, pack, and ship. So for 12 years, they built that vertical became its own entity into another business. So while building the courier business, and then. 2.5 years ago, we shut that vertical down to refocus on the courier business. A lot of zigs and zags.
Yeah, a lot of flexibility on your part, right?
Yeah. Yes.
One thing about successful entrepreneurs is they have their head up and they're looking at the horizon and seeing what's coming up, and then zigging and zagging, changing, switching up, being resilient to make sure that the business continues to grow and be successful.
Yeah, I think we've had to reinvent ourselves. I think we're on the third time now, the third role. Mm-hmm. Just always looking at what's next and how to look forward. So
talk to me about GO2 Delivery today. What's your vision for it, and how are you differentiated in the marketplace from other large and small regional and national couriers?
So when we were kind of rethinking this latest iteration of the business, we wanted to, I guess, differentiate the market not only from the offerings, but having more of a purpose behind it. And so 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, started asking myself, why am I here on this planet? And so I really kind of, through a series of deductive reasoning, I was like, my purpose on the planet is to actually heal the planet. And it's like, how do I do that? And so being in the delivery business primarily, we create a lot of CO2 with our vehicles. So I was trying to kind of reimagine bringing in my personal passions into the business about my long-term impact with sustainability. At the same time, I was looking at trends in our delivery space. There were a lot of tech startups in our space. Mm-hmm. That you were just tech companies that came in, become a courier company. They had software, and they started to compete. And our brand was kind of dated, so we wanted to kind of have a more updated brand. So that's why we changed the name from Mobile One Courier to GO2 Delivery. So we kind of combined the sustainability aspect with more of a tech forward kind of model ourselves. But I kind of went back to what did we do really well? What did we not do well? And so we wanted to kind of hone in and create more of a blue ocean strategy. And so we wanted to go in and start really focusing on what made us really unique. And it came down to a few things. So we saw that the business that were really growing and scaling were using lean process and making things more efficient, which reduces the cost of things. And leveraging technology. So we wanted to go in and really leverage those things to how can we lean process, make more efficient, things, bring in new technology, value innovation to the model. And then we also noticed that if we weren't aligned with our clients, the retention was it's a revolving door process. So we wanted to bring value innovation, we call it minimalism, which is like a lean process, and interconnectedness, which is alignment. Those are our three values into it. So we kind of redid our model so that we would go into businesses and help them revamp their logistics and create delivery models that helps them grow and scale by serving just a handful of verticals. So it's primarily healthcare and e-commerce today.
So from the outside, the courier business looks pretty simple, but it doesn't sound like that's the case.
No, there's actually a lot of technology that goes on behind the scenes. And then when you go to serve a niche player or a niche vertical, you get into nuances. With healthcare, there's a lot of compliance stuff, integrations with industry applications, things like that. And you're delivering things, and so things require other things to make things go smooth. And so we have like a lot of technology offerings, like smart delivery boxes, temperature control boxes that are all kind of tracked, really unique value proposition. So,
yeah. So what are the current challenges in the business?
So I'd say the current challenges in the business are probably from the technology standpoint is just getting things integrated. With the tech stack would be kind of a key challenge, is just taking working with really complicated systems or bureaucratic technology companies to bring them together into a more modern platform between our client applications and our applications. I would say probably the next one is always human resources. It's just trying to find good people and have a scalable option to bring on lots of people at one time with the growth that we have, and then retention. I'd say those are probably our two primary challenges.
So I guess I would think that the gig economy has been a good evolution for you, because that makes it easier to find couriers, or not so much?
There's good and bad, because it's the political climate that really changes how the perspective on the gig economy of the gig worker, which the correct term is independent contractor. And so it kind of yings and yangs, or it zigs and zags rather, with the stance on it. So sometimes we have more pro gig worker economy, and some less with regulations. And so and there's a lot of legal issues around that. So if you're not properly working with contractors, you could be at risk of lawsuits or compliance with government regulations, and that's something that's always on the radar. We're always concerned about.
Yeah. Tell me about some of your proudest moments as a business owner and a CEO.
I guess the first one, early on, it's more revenue based. I remember when we hit our first $80,000 a month, which is annualized about $1 million.
Yeah,
and that was kind of a key moment. I would say proudest moments. Let me think. I would say, oh gosh. I think it was maybe a shift in the business where I wasn't the sole decision maker, that I had a team of people that I could trust. And that trust is always a mirror, because trusting your people is really you trusting your people and then giving them the room to take the lead. And so that's hard for entrepreneurs, is to let go, right?
Yeah.
So when I was in a headspace where I could let go and let others do, that was a really great moment, or time, because you begin to really value the leaders in your company running the business. So it's actually very freeing for them and then me as the entrepreneur, like, to not be micromanaging people. So that, I guess, it's more of like a shift in our business, and so that it's been evolution. But that's probably another proud moment. for the business. I think of some others, but those are top of mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really hard one. That's a really hard one. And so you should be proud of it. But I mean, how do you think you orchestrated that? Some business owners are never able to let go. And so they hire smart people, and those people don't have the freedom or the responsibility or the accountability to run the business, and it can't scale. So what was your secret? How did you do that?
Honestly, a lot of coaching, most of behavioral, a lot of mindset narrative stuff, getting rid of a lot of the head trash. And it's just phases. And so I feel like I'm ready to go in the next phase, but it took a long time to get through the narrative mindset stuff to get rid of the head trash.
Yeah. And what difference have you noticed in your team since you were able to make that transition?
Well, I guess, in the team, I would say, for me, the relationship is I lead, I don't manage, right? That's uniquely different, which then resonates with the organization. They become lead versus manage as well.
That's great. And so where do you see this business in a couple of years?
Ideally, $20 million. Our run rate's about 7 right now, 6.5, 7 right now. So,
growth.
Yeah, definitely. And then expanding to other markets. You maybe do a couple acquisitions.
That's great. And you think just one business, because in the past you've run many businesses kind of at a time, and they've been like this. So you think this is the one, or you have other business ideas to start as well?
Well, I've started rolling the business ideas into the business instead of other companies, and it's probably my personal passion around innovation is how can I just innovate my current business versus innovate other businesses, other ventures, and so like some of the new technology we're looking to bring on, like the temperature controlled reusable shipping containers, which would not only be more sustainable but lowers the cost. Mm-hmm. So we're working on those right now. And then probably my next big iteration of technology would be drone delivery.
Right.
I know there's been a lot of talk about drone delivery and package delivery, but it's just you really kind of practical use cases around drone delivery. Honestly, it's about the economics about it, not just this new tech. It's got to make sense. So that's probably the next thing that's on my radar is drone delivery.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was doing another interview for this podcast recently, and it was in the healthcare space. And she made the same comment about not technology for technology's sake, but the practicalities, the application, the real ability to get value in the business from technology adoption. And it seems like you have an array of technologies that you're hoping to reap that from as you grow from your business today to more of a regional business and get larger. How do you stay up to date with technologies, and how do you decide which ones seem to make sense?
Well, I would say you're always trying to look ahead and experiment. We do a lot of it. Well, I do a lot of experimentation with new ideas, and then I run them by my team, just kind of ideation with them, and then we try to build models with them. So one of as an example, we use mostly gig workers for our deliveries. Well, we want to convert them to electronic vehicles. And you think that would be just real easy. There's just go buy something. Well, again, you have to go back to practical terms. Is an EV practical for a gig worker to use for their deliveries?
Right.
Obviously, we want to do it from a sustainability perspective, but we end up having to create a playbook for them. How would it work? And so we learned about the unit economics, if you will. How does that work? So not only sustainable, but how does it make them better? How does it help them save money and time? And so we're working on some models with that. So we're actually talking to EV manufacturers directly about maybe we have a special kind of scenario when we buy the vehicles and we just lease them to the drivers.
Right.
So we're road testing that, no pun intended.
Okay. Got it. So Can we switch and talk a little bit about you personally and not just about your business? Tell me where you grew up and what it was like.
I grew up in Hampton, Virginia. Like I said, my father was an eye doctor, has his own optical practice. He and my mom ran the business with had one employee. My dad was somewhat of an entrepreneur himself. He's always trying to do different businesses. He had different businesses, like he had a anti-glare screen company where you put things on top of screens to make them anti-glare. He had a furniture company, with computers. He had, had all sorts of different types of startups. So a lot of crazy ideas, which was great. And I think for me, that just taught me a lot about creativity as a kid. So what else? Growing up, I love to play. I wanted to be a marine biologist as a kid.
Oh, okay.
So that was something I wanted to do. And then didn't happen because I ended up quitting college. So
that explains your background.
Well, I mean, marine biology, I'm really passionate about marine ecosystems, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But they only made $22,000 a year. And so after going through the bankruptcy, I was like, how can I create more income? So,
yeah. So, you mentioned your father and that bankruptcy, and I know that was formative for you. But what else from your young years do you think you bring to your business?
So I always tried to think of different business ideas as a kid. My first business was a startup when I was, I think, 7 or 8 years old. I had this idea because back then, I'm 53. I was born in 71. Recycling was a thing back then because you had the glass bottles and newspapers, and you could actually turn in these glass bottles and make money.
Yeah.
So I created a flyer, which I hand wrote, of course, and I went to all the neighbors and said, every Thursday I'll pick up all your bottles, and because I could turn them to the grocery store to get like a nickel or a dime, whatever. And so I had I started great with the concept. The problem is the implementation didn't go so well. I wasn't consistent, so it kind of fell apart. It was a very short-lived kind of business. So I look back, is like I'm the visionary. I'm not the manager. So,
not the operations guy.
The operations, yeah. The other bit, the next business I started, I had this idea of getting all the kids on the block to sell their toys and having like a yard sale. That would make kind of a cut of the deal.
Yeah.
So that we did that, a few iterations of that. My third business idea, which was not great, but so was stealing my dad's cigarettes and selling them to the kids in the neighborhood. I made money in that one.
I bet you did. And that inventory was very light and easy to move.
Yes, yeah. So that was interesting. So I had different things, but those are some of the different concepts I tried to start as a kid. But
so you really were born into it. That's wonderful. And I know how busy you are. People who own their own businesses, run their own businesses, have a million things to do every day. Even if you're not the operator guy, you're the idea guy, you still have a million things on your plate. And so I'm wondering what kind of personal daily rituals or routines you've developed to help you organize yourself or to undergird your success.
That's a tough one because I'll be honest with you. I have a few things, but I'm still kind of all over the place, to be totally honest. But I try to every Sunday look at my week, what's my priorities, and then every quarter we look at what we're trying to accomplish every quarter and kind of break it down. And then our executive team, we review weekly. What are the priorities and the focus, and on those few things, important things. But I'm not super great at that stuff in terms of like I'm definitely the idea guy, but when it comes to like implementation of the things, I guess I'm really answering the question. But um, I'm probably, I'll tell you what I'm best at.
Okay, we'll go there.
Go the strengths finder route. I'm really great at taking ideas and creating a plan of action around that, or a strategy around something that really is unique to compete or have some differentiation. So I could often see trends in the market and see some gaps in the market where we can go and serve. So that's tend to where I do best. I would say my routines. I've kind of like, we started using EOS 4 or 5 years ago, Entrepreneurial Operating System with Traction. We don't really use it now, except the weekly meetings and then the quarterly planning. And I guess that's probably been a really good planning tool to keep me on a consistent basis of cadence, rather, with them.
Yeah. How do you stay current? How much? I mean, are you up until 3 in the morning every night searching around on the web? Are there particularly things that you read? How do you keep up with all the components?
Well, no, I'm not up till 3 or 4 in the morning. I found that doing working the midnight oil is just not sustainable. No pun intended, but it just the older you get, your health is really important, and getting 7-8 hours of sleep is really important to me. So, but I'd say to me remain relevant, just being involved in trade conferences or organizations, and I just have just a general kind of curiosity about what's next. And when you're taking a focus on how to grow a business, and it's like you just ask yourself, what's the next thing in the business? So I just kind of follow this train of thought. If we're trying to focus on healthcare, what are the problems that healthcare is facing, or e-commerce? And then just see what other people are doing, and just learn from that, and then how can make that better. So they often say there's not a lot of original ideas out there. So I try to see what other people are doing in our industry and just try to make it better. So
yeah, that's probably why you've been so successful, right? You're not just mimicking them or satisfied to do what other people are doing, but you're constantly trying to innovate and do something.
Well, I used to want to be the first at an innovation, be like this leading edge, and I found that like that's really expensive to be like the first one to market. And so I've kind of like think about like after someone's gone through a couple of revisions of an idea, that's the time to kind of really kind of like evaluate a technology or a vertical or a thing, to kind of really be cautious, or maybe a risk mitigator. Like, for example, drones is one that's been around for now 10 years. And so just waiting for the market to be ready with the product development to the trends in the market where you could use that. So, like, yeah, to give you an example, like I love EVs, but I waited till like the third version of a Tesla or a Rivian or second version for Rivian, but before I go buy something. So
it's kind of practical innovation.
Yeah.
As opposed to just shiny object.
Yes.
Go here, 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 here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's served you well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Thank you. This is my last question for you. And that is, what advice would you give to your peers, to other entrepreneurs? What hard lesson have you learned that you'd like them to not have to learn the hard way?
I think it goes back to the leadership aspect. Is learn to find people who compliment you, and that's overstated. People just they hear, oh yeah, sure, but really, I think about learning to let go of things that you're not great at. And I will say there's a bit of a caution behind that, because a lot of times people will abdicate themselves and say, just here you go, you take care of it. You still need to be involved in that. I will say also, for example, we just hired a VP of marketing, and we've been focused on a rebrand with marketing for the last 2 years, and I've been leading that charge. It's been a bit painful, but I've learned a base level of knowledge So then bringing in a VP of marketing, two things happen. I have a really good basic understanding of what we need. And then the second most important thing is what I value. And so what I mean by value is finding the right kind of person and the work that's it's involved for that. So it kind of goes back to in the past, I've had people work for me that have done a lot of work, and then when they leave, and then I value what they did because I didn't really understand, because I abdicated myself in that relationship. So the longer that I'm around in business, I'm more aware of valuing people, what they are doing, and becoming more aware what is needed and required, and the level of depth that they have. And so, so I think that's really important, is valuing what a good leader or a good manager can do for you, and appreciating them. So
I thought where you were going with that was that you delegated to them and then were kind of so disengaged that you didn't hold them accountable, but you went to a completely different place.
Yeah, I've done that too. Yeah, but I think I had a director of operations who ran at the time my two companies, and she didn't really have a base level understanding of my courier company, but she had a really good level of understanding of my fulfillment pick, pack, and ship company. And so my fulfillment company, when I hired her, was small and it grew over time. And we would just butt heads. So she'd say, you need to do this. I'm like, no. I was just like this egocentric, visionary. We're going to do this, and not listen to her. And then when she left, it was 8 years later, I thought I got this. It's going to be okay. But only to find out over the next 3 years how much work that was involved. And I had to really learn the business, even though I had been in business 8 years in the fulfillment company, because I never really learned the business. And it became an immense value and respect, all the things that she had said.
Right.
But because I now understood, what she was saying all along. And so that made me really aware what a really good leader looks like, the pain and experience I went through. So I don't necessarily advocate for going through pain, but I think it's a great lesson by going through the pain of handling an area that you're not great at.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value to that, but knowing when, okay, it's time to make the change, and having that wisdom to know that appreciation for what to look for in a leader. So
yeah, I love that. I love the idea of appreciation. I'm going to take that away from this conversation.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks, Eric. This has been the Growth Plus Exit podcast, and we've been talking to Eric Brown, who is the CEO of GO2 Delivery, one of his the many ventures he has launched in his life, starting from age 7. Eric, any last thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. Listeners, if you want to learn more about Eric and the cool sustainable work they're doing at GO2 Delivery, you can go to his website and visit and take a look. And Eric, thanks. I'll look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Have a good one.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, sponsored by Newport, a unique national business advisory firm. If you enjoyed this show, be sure to share, like, and subscribe for future episodes.